I was saying, this one, what does it do already? I don't remember. Localization, culture neutrality editor, culture neutrality editor, apparently. So one setting was not updated correctly in some conditions. It's fixed on dev branch. And this one was that we removed YAML.NET package, one of the packages that we don't use, the dynamic one, I think. So this one altogether. Interesting. That's it on Orchard 1. I checked with Benedek all the things that had to be done to release 1.10.3. So it should be done very soon. As every week I said that, but every week we are closer to the ship date, right? Whatever ship date it is. Orchard Core. Let's look at the dev branch first. No, this is wrong. So what's happening? That's better. 7 days, 60 correct section of content types, node on blog recipe, okay. TS reference, yep, wrong folder for the TS reference in workflows. Fix DbConnectionAccessor Exception, so better DbConnectionAccessor, which lets you inject DbConnectionAccessor if you want just to get a connection to do SQL queries using Dapper or direct connections. That will be useful. Instead of going through the session, you don't have to know SQL. In this case, you just do DbConnectionAccessor. Fix menuItemsList, GraphQL query. menuItemsList was not working. You can query the menu from GraphQL, which is good. Fixing Gulp pipeline. What did I fix? I fixed that. Yeah, there were some issues with some packages and some Gulp updates, and so the big change here is that in the main package.json at the root of the folder, you can now point to module package.json files. And have a package.json in each module with their own dependencies. So they will have their own node modules folder, but we will still use the same single npm install at the root, and it will drive all the dependencies for each module. And then the gulp file will still work at the root folder. The idea is that each module should not have to embed the source assets in the assets folder if they are on npm. This way we won't have to commit it, and we will be able to update them more easily. And that's about it. So for instance, some files should be removed when we go to package.json. Or whenever we move to package.json, and if we are not removing some files, then we should look into that again. So the final assets should still remain under the root, but the source one from assets folder should get removed in this case, because they will come from Node.js and we won't commit it in our repository. It's just to build the final assets that we need to use. So it's much better. And there are some more PRs related to that after that. We'll see. This little loop is me not clicking the squash and merge, but the merge. Somehow the settings are not taken into account anymore in some, I don't know why, or maybe it's because I was on my phone when I did that, because usually the squash and merge is a default option and I didn't pay attention. I clicked merge, and realized too late after a few commits, so I could not rewrite the history. That's okay, that's fine. That happens sometimes. Seth made a change, incorrectly named command for creating Orchard CMS module. So he fixed all the templates. I didn't try all the commands. Well, the documentation was wrong. At least I tried 1 or 2 commands, and he also fixed then the manifest. So this was working, but this was wrong. This will get replaced by the name of the module because it will match the pattern, but this is not what we want. We want them to be in Orchard. Well, we want using OrchardCore modules manifest, so that's better. Fixed also some other issues with templates. You see again, I did the opposite this time. I forgot to put .cms. And this is the merge commit. Then we merge this PR with Microsoft Authentication, which is adding, we saw that last week, Azure Authentication and Azure Active Directory Authentication and Microsoft Account Authentication, and going up a little bit, we also merge is Twitter Authentication. So now you have Facebook, Microsoft accounts, Azure Active Directory, and Twitter authentication features. It's good. Updated Redis libraries because there are new ASP.NET libraries for Redis. Because of change management, then there are new packages. There are 2 packages now on NuGet, one for the 2.1 applications and one for the 2.2 applications. Because Stack Exchange updated, made a huge fix in their libraries and with breaking changes. So to be able to add them in 2.2, there are now new packages for Redis in ASP.NET for data protection and for the cache. Where is the cache? Here. Caching.stackExchange Redis. Okay. Add required popper.js for Bootstrap. Here from Matthias, fixing the content field views. I assume icon picker. Update TaxonomyOrchardHelperExtensions. Yep, it was taking a wrong property from Lonive. New contributor. Link tags should self-close. The idea is that when we render the resource with a link tag, it should be, or a style sheet actually, link style sheet, then it should be self-closing. It was not the case. New contributor again, Emma Middlebrook. Improve login page layout and form alignments. So that's a new login page, updated, improved login page, which is smaller and is mobile friendly. From Peter Davis, who's not a new committer, and is the new one who has like so many PRs waiting for me to review. It used to be Michael and Mathis, but now it's Peter. Use NancyOptions. So Jean-Thierry fixed the Nancy middleware or the Nancy module. It was broken. Update dependency. It was not broken, but you could not mix Nancy modules and MVC modules. Now it's done. Update Dependencies.AspNetCore.props. Jean-Thierry fixed one I missed, apparently. Configure the user's modules to register the application cookie handler as a default sign-out scheme, so that when you log out, it actually logs you out and removes the cookie. Fix Gulp file watcher after Gulp upgrade. So Matthias fixed it and fixed it again after also. Change default schedule from ND because this is, I think, that's what he said, every 5th minute, but every hour on the 5th minute, but actually this is every 5 minutes. I don't know, something like that. I'm not super good at cron tabs. I just Google it and that tells me what. Let's see what it's doing. Just if you don't know what a cron tab is, cron tab quick reference. expression editor and you type it, and it will tell you that at minute 5. You see, that's exactly not what we want. We don't want the background task to be executed at every 5th minute of the hour, but every 5 minutes. And to do that, it's this one. Every 5th minute.
Hit what?
Mute.
You found the button, Berens. That's okay. Then more validation spans after validated elements. Yes, move, not more, move. The idea is that, so Kevin reminded us that we need to put the validation attributes in a separate tag, and Antoine fixed all the usage by putting them after the input, because Bootstrap expects them to be after the input, and did that for all the forms where we had validation. So that's how you do validation. ASP validation for the property name, but as a separate tag and after the input. Fixes number blah blah blah. Data protection was not registered correctly. The issue being that if you don't have settings, it will break the site if you enable the feature. So now it's failing gracefully by logging the issue and not start trying to load the middleware of the configuration. My kill was working on Twitter. Authentication, we saw that. Antoine, 6 hours ago, fixing the documentation talk. Good job. Seth, fixing some views. So, in terms of, is that for accessibility? Maybe. We were using field set incorrectly, mostly because I just did the same thing we did in Orchard 1, which was incorrect, but now we know it's incorrect, and it's fixed by Seth, and he just made that on one module, and he's got another PR that he's working on to make it on all the modules. So instead of doing field set, you do just a div when we have a field to render. We do a field set only if there is a specific group of fields we need to group together with a legend, for instance. So that's a simple change, and it's not changing anything on the UI. And then if we want to apply sizing, we can put the raw attribute on the main div class. That's good. I think Seth is a new contributor. I don't remember any contribution from him before that, at least before this one. OpenIdStore.SetRolesAsync, which was broken because of SQL behavior, default and expected behavior, which were not expected in this case. That's another story. And you see, by the way, the usage of div instead of fields, if that's related, maybe not. Yeah, so the idea was that this should not have been called because something else was doing that. But that's okay. Fixed. Use package.json in OrchardResources. So Antoine updated the Orchard.Resources repo to use the new package.json support. Well, new NPM module support. And you see all these resources now are removed from the assets. They will come from the node module, which is at the root folder, but the dependencies added at the resources module level. And I also helped Antoine and changed some of the things. For instance, we are using Terser instead of Uglify because Uglify doesn't support ES6 correctly. Terser does. So now this is the Uglifier, the minifier that we are using. What else? This is the third. You see, we created packages and resources, setup, and the admin. Bootstrap is now defined as a node module dependency. We also have a Bootstrap-CSS dependency. Antoine updated all the code mirror usage to use the resource correctly. You see, for instance, before it was embedding Bootstrap into the assets folder, and we were actually storing that in our GitHub repository. Now we just point to the node modules of the root. But this module defines a dependency on Bootstrap. As here. You see, it requires Bootstrap. So that's better. Less files in our repo. Matthias fixed Gulp watch with some regular expression magic, like replace all the backslashes with a slash. Add cancel buttons to edit field and typePart from Matthias. So new cancel buttons, I assume you will be adding them wherever is missing them. In this case, in the content type editor. Now, when you edit a field or a part, you can go back to the previous screen instead of clicking back or Alt left arrow. That's it for Origin Dev, and let's see the work on the other PRs. Because there are also lots of work on other PRs, or sometimes not yet PRs. Render, which is to be able to render some HTML fragment or content item using GraphQL. That will be used for static sites, still work in progress. This we didn't merge. I merged it.
No.
I didn't merge it?
No, not yet.
I changed it. I reviewed it. What did I do? I did something with that. Almost sure I merged it. I even wanted to comment on something and I didn't. I'm like, well, I'll comment on that later. I didn't merge. That's weird. Or maybe I was waiting for the build to finish. Well, it has issues. Sorry. Your own PR broke your other PR. Yeah, the idea with this PR was to show that, well, to at least allow for referencing draft versions or content items which don't have a published version, just a draft, and is also displaying that it's not published. And also the fact that if you unpublish an item that you already selected, it will still be selected. The helpers, however, to read these content items won't load any content which is not yet published, or at least the latest published version of the content item. I think there's a bug in this thing, by the way, while I'm explaining that. Because you load the latest version. Here, let me show you. To show you that I read the code. Here you load the latest now instead of the published one. And there might be a published version, but here you say content item.isPublished. Here you should say has published. Because if you say is published, if there is a draft and a published version, it will say wrong here. It will say false, like it's not published. But you're actually referencing an item that has a published version, also a draft. What you want to see here is has published, like there is a published version, so you don't need to show that the item is not published because there is a published version. So I think there is an issue here. You'll confirm that, but because you are loading the latest, which might be the draft, even though there is a published version. So maybe that's why I didn't merge. So the comment I wanted to do, and I didn't did, I will just do it verbally, is that this kind of thing should be a localized pattern. Like it should be T of something dash something, because maybe in a RTL language you will want this stuff on the left and this stuff on the right. So this will be localized. And I was about to do the same comment on the other change, which is here, same thing for that. Maybe the not published should be on the left. But in this case, it will be because of localization. You will just use, you should add classes on this item and the sub item. So we can in the CSS change the order when it's an RTL language. But we'll deal with that. There will be more issues like this when we try to implement the RTL localization or the RTL theme in the admin. So that's why I didn't comment on that, because that's, if you think about it next time, do it, but it doesn't matter for this PR. So that one that I didn't mention apparently. This one, updating TrumboWig, I made some comments on this one which are important to make. The comment I made is, yes, use a package.json if it's available as an NPM instead of having to, you see, 26 files change just to update a version. It means we're updating the code ourselves and then generating. You see, that's bad. We should not have to embed that. In the generated resource, okay, if we want to host that, that's fine. But in the source itself, that should not be the case. But now we can do that, so I think he did that. And then, so another command which is generated with the assets is here. This PR is changing the plugins for the TrumboWig editor, which is a default HTML editor. So when we create a text field or a part, we just say default editor. And the default editor is using TrumboWig. But in this case here, the default editor now will allow for changing the style, the font, and everything. And maybe that's not what you want when you edit HTML, to let users embed custom styles in style or change the font. So what I'm suggesting in the other package, in the other comment, is to maybe not add other plugins like very opinionated plugins in the default editor, but have at least options to be able to enable or not these plugins, because we can do that with custom editors. We can have a checkbox of all available plugins and let the user decide what plugins they want for this part or for this field, but have these options available in a custom editor called TrumboWig editor, because these options are only do make sense for the TrumboWig editor. So have a TrumboWig HTML editor with the plugins options, with available plugins that we provide with this editor, and have the default HTML editor still use TrumboWig, but without any option that don't make sense for all default HTML editors, or at least with a simple HTML editor that doesn't have all these win options. So we will have two editors based on TrumboWig, but one which is called a default HTML editor, and maybe in 2 weeks we'll change the default editor to use something else, and have the TrumboWig editor with all the TrumboWig options that will still remain TrumboWig editor, even if we change the default HTML editor to something else. So that's and that's something that will apply to any kind of editor that we use by default, or could use more options. Like if we have the Markdown editor, and same thing, there are some new Markdown flavor or whatever, which is not standard or have custom plugins, then there should be another editor. And the default Markdown editor should be what's common to all Markdown editors. That's the idea. Even if we use the same package for both editors. Okay. Distributed, this is Jean-Thierry working on distributed branch that will merge as soon as we have beta 3 shipped. We'll merge this one to support all the distributed features. Configuration is one I started with Jean-Thierry. This one is interesting. I will show you. I will make a demo of this one. So demo Gulp pipeline, just to show you what has been done. This one, and configuration, and then other Nick rollups. So new feature from Nick, he made a PR, I suggested some things. This one is nice also. So the idea is that he wants to provide a way for using path like this directly in GraphQL instead of having to go to authora.path. So this thing is generated by reflection. So we take the part, Nick also removed the part string from the part in the GraphQL, and then we show the properties, every property of the parts. But most of our parts have just a single property. So what he's trying to do is to remove this level and show just blog.path. This will come from the author route. And how it did that is by providing some configuration screens in each part and types, well, in each part, to have a checkbox that will let the user say collapse the properties. My comment on this one is that maybe instead of having a configuration screen, we should just have some code so that when we register a new part, we can say, well, we have auto-route part which has a path, but in GraphQL it should just be path. Because I don't think that, I think it should be the default. I mean, it makes sense, or even call it auto-route part, but path makes sense. Or for a field, like a text field that has .text, let's just do the name of the field. It's the text. There is only one property. So these kind of parts and fields, this should just be the default. We don't have to configure them. And provide a way by code to define that. So when we register a part, we can also say, in the context of GraphQL, these are the fields that I want to expose. And this is how I want to expose them. And it's done the work already. It's just driven right now by a setting, a checkbox on the settings, but I think it should be by default. We don't even need the settings for most of the cases. That's my recommendation. But that should look like this in the end. That will be even nicer. And then this could be documented. A auto-route part exposes the path property on the GraphQL. That's it. Then manage media field. 4 hours ago. There is no PR for that, right? Or did I miss it? Because I don't know what it is.
No, not yet.
Oh, this is an update on the media field that you demoed last time.
Yes.
Okay. And this one from Jasmin, who is updating the admin menu with nice stuff and stuff I don't understand yet, because only Matthias and Jasmin understand that. Demos questions first. Did I miss any question on the chat? No. Questions about the changes or the non-changes? Then demos. Jasmin, do you want to do a demo? I didn't ask you.
You want to see the new admin menu?
Yes, I want you to show the new admin menu. I made you a presenter.
Okay.
For everyone to see. And while you are preparing your screen, I've seen some comments in live.asp.net about OrchardCore. Someone was asking for an e-commerce solution on OrchardCore. Just saying. People in this room are listening and work on the e-commerce solution.
Yeah, Bertrand, I don't know if he worked on it yet.
He makes
myself.
He makes issues. He makes the issues. At least at the beginning. What to do.
Yeah, I don't have time right now, but I will have time at some point to contribute on that. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Everyone can see.
Okay. So first, tried the new admin tree that Matthias did, and I wanted to add some enhancements on that. So I went from there. As you can see, my menu has some different icons for each items, and it still works. So what I did there is I just created placeholders and custom admin links there and changed the icons. So I made some changes. I had a position order, and for this work, I just need to change the selection priority to 1, because by default, the priority is always at 0. So for instance, a module will always have a priority if you create a menu item from a module. The priority will always be 0.
And my question, which is, what? So I thought I understood priority, and now I see position. So priority, from what I understood, is that if you go on a URL and 2 menu items match this URL, which is possible because we have admin nodes and we might go to the same page from 2 different nodes in the menu, the priority will define which one is selected. Okay?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And what about the position order? Because we already have.
Yeah, this is coming from O1. We had a position, and when we wanted to have a priority over another module, we were just adding a position there, and if the menu had no priority, we were just not adding a position. So it was taking by preference the menu items that had a position.
But
So
what is position versus priority? Because to me, there are two different things.
Yeah. Position normally should be just having an order. Yeah, it should be the order of the menu, the order of the items in the menu, and the priority should be just saying, yeah, you have two menu items that have the same position, but this one is as a priority, so you should override it.
So priority is not what I explained then. I thought priority was just to highlight a menu item in priority, not where it is, or to take over someone else. It's just, I have two menu items in the menu. If the URL that I'm displaying matches the two menu items at the same time, then it's only highlighting the one with the highest priority.
Yeah, this is what it's doing right now, because before we were using the position parameter for doing that. So if a module had a position, then it was taking this as a priority, which was kind of strange to me. So I made some change in the navigation manager to just take in consideration the priority there.
For highlighting only.
Yeah, for highlighting only. And the position is not used for anything else than the position.
In the context of you have menu items from code and menu items from admin tree, and to order them if, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I just made a separation between those two things because I thought that position was not supposed to be used for a priority or.
Okay.
And for example, we were using this for the configuration menu because we have this in a lot of different modules, but the one that is that has priority over all the other ones is the feature one. So in the admin menu, I just added the priority 1 in code. So now it's taking this configuration menu there as the one that is as a priority, instead of using the 10 there that was the position.
Okay. Do you need to set priority 1? Can't it be the default to be 0, for instance?
Yeah, it can be 0. So since I have a lot of module there that has the configuration menu, it will take the last one that it has in the list. So I was having my configuration menu on top there. That was not a big issue because the configuration menu was still there, but it was not taking the one from the feature module. With the position at 10, it was taking another one.
When you say it's taking, what does it mean taking? For me, it's just highlighting. The priority is just about highlighting. So in this case, like the configuration menu entry here, I see the add configuration with priority 1. I understand it's defined in 10 different modules because they all add this entry. But in the end, there is only one entry. And there is no conflict in terms of URL because there is a single entry called configuration with the No,
there's multiple entry in that list here. This is why we merge it.
Okay.
Here in that method, we merge it. We check the priority and we take only the one that has the priority that is the higher one, and we set the property of that item.
Okay.
And we
so
remove the one that we don't need.
So it's not just highlighting then, it's also setting the other properties of the menu item from the entry that has the highest priority.
Yeah.
Like if two of them define an icon, then the one with the highest priority will be used. Okay, so it's not just highlighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is it. I worked on that too here, the menu and the styling, and added some accessibility thing here with the keyboard.
If you define a placeholder admin link with a high priority called configuration.
Yep, like I did there.
You can redefine the icon of configuration. Okay.
Yep.
Get it?
And you can do that with all the menu items there, as long as you have the right URL that you copy.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. Those that don't have a URL or placeholder, and those that have direct link or let me see, I had a link admin node, so that you can have a link text and a URL. I found that there was an issue there with this. If I had, for example, a HTTP something, it will fail. I had a log. It creates a log saying that the URL is not valid, and also if you use tiled, it's not going to work. It's going to just, it's not tenant aware. So there's something that needs to be done there. I changed it also something where it checks for the URLs to be able to define, because here we have like recipes there. It's created from the admin tree, so I need to validate this URL, and there's a method there that we are using. I'm not remembering exactly where, but yeah, I changed it something I could show you later, or you will see in the code in the PR. So that's about it. And also, yeah, I did that. So I had an overflow for these things, and I have some work yet to do on this to make it better. I don't like the scroll bar, default scroll bar, but it's working. I mean, at this point, this is all just small changes.
And in mobile?
Yeah, mobile. Yeah, I changed something here. I fixed also, I'm searching my menu items. I fixed graphql one. And you can also, the transition there is smoother, also with the media.
Okay.
That's about it. Yeah.
Thank you. It doesn't look like VSTS.
No, not yet.
Okay. It will.
I like this though.
I like VSTS.
It's bigger. The icons are bigger, but I mean, the configuration menu needs to go down there, and I need to check if I can do that without looping a second time on all the items.
Oh, it's crazy ID. Yeah, you don't need that. You can keep it for OrchardCore too.
And though this one could be on the bottom there.
Yeah, we talked about lots of solutions for that. Yeah. Yeah, right now don't care too much. Try to finish something.
Let's see. I think I have VSTS opened. Yeah, it's there. It's the same size of icons. The text, all. I made it lighter. I don't like this color, so I made it lighter. And if we have a lot of items, a lot of sub menus levels, then it gets darker. So I started from really light, so that we can have a lot more levels. And for the new here, I think this is an easy one. This is the only one that I need to do.
If there is a clear separation with the containers, we might not even need the drop-down arrow on the right, like VSTS is doing, because it's obvious that you're in a section. And if you go 2 levels deep, can you see also darker and darker?
Yeah, it's configuration, settings, it gets darker.
Okay. Yeah, at least we have that. Thank you. Looks nice.
You're welcome.
I will let Matthias criticize what you've done.
Yeah.
Good. Does someone have any demos you want to share with us before I share mine? Should be simple. So you see my screen. First thing, if I go VS Code. If I go VS Code, look at that. It's already there. You see this terminal here, and I'm sure it works because it was my previous command from yesterday. Gulp build works. This is not what you care about. So you remember we have a package.json here, which contains all the packages, npm modules that we need. So when you have that and you want to build a script or you change a script, you do npm install, and it will install all the modules from packages.json. Okay, that's standard npm behavior. Maybe some of you don't know how it works in the case of Orchard. So npm install. Then you do gulp build, which will look for all the assets.json file and build all the assets for each module that they require. And you also, again, have to do that only if you change some JS files, scripts, CSS, SCSS, or any new ones. You can use that. You don't have to, but it's recommended that you use that because it will create all the minified versions and bundles and everything. Okay, but if you don't have to deal with them, you never have to call gulp build. There is a gulp rebuild that will rebuild everything and not just what has changed, and there is a gulp watch that Matthias has fixed on Windows that will just run a background task, and as soon as you change a JS file or a CSS file, it will rebuild automatically the dependent assets when you're developing. That's super useful. That's it. And the change we did is that now if I look at package.json file here, you see now these are all the dependencies that we know of from OrchardCore and the Gulp pipeline, and these are module specific dependencies, which are, so you need to get an entry in this thing, and then if I go open this file, okay, the package.json inside the API of GraphQL module, this one depends on these npm modules. So if I go on the folder related to that, here we used to store some assets there, and then with this file build some output resources from the assets folder, which will have the source resources. Now, because we use the package.json in each module, we can point to the node modules at the root level, because we know that it will resolve that, and point to these to build output resources, so GraphQL CSS, GraphQL JS, or bundle them and so on. And then from, they will be copied in the root. Okay, these things are generated by the assets.json file in the root, and this is what we commit because we ship that, the rendered assets. In this case, we could also say everything goes in one file. Okay, GraphQL plus React plus whatever. Okay, that's what we do in many modules like the admin. So the admin now uses the same thing. So if I go on the admin, I think this is this one. We have a package.json. The admin requires Bootstrap and popper.js, and then the assets file says, okay, take all the CSS and the SCSS and put them in one CSS file. Take all the JavaScript and put them in one JavaScript file. Okay. This one is specific to the menu. It could also go there. The only thing we will have to do is just move that here, just say, okay, also embed this file, and then we can remove this output and just remove the link to the previous file because everything will be in the JS file here. That's the idea. So that's the update on the Gulp pipeline to be able to use package.json in each module, and that's what we should migrate all our assets to have less files in the repository. Then the other demo was the configuration. Yeah, this one is important. So if I go on OrchardCore, the PR configuration, this one, work in progress, but with already something that is working. Fixes lots of issues because it's a very important feature. Provide a pertinent configuration story, meaning ASP.NET configuration story. And what it's fixing also is environmental settings, which is the fact that you can have different settings for development, production, staging, whatever environment you want. Okay, and also what it's fixing is that thing which is use JSON for site settings instead of YAML, and this way we can remove the YAML library. And this thing is related to the multi-tenancy thing, but this also mentions and variables. So by using the ASP.NET configuration for the settings, for the tenant settings, we can also leverage the command line parsing, the environment variables, or any source of configuration you would like to define. A very good use case that it's allowing now is that if you have a multi-tenant system, which is where all your tenants use the same database but just vary by a table prefix, you don't want all your site settings file or site.txt file to have the connection string. You want them to be in one single environment variable, and each tenant has just the table prefix. So with that PR, you can do that. You can just define OrchardCore_connection string property in your environment variable, and then all the tenants will get this connection string for there. Or you can define it on the command line because you want to override something. Or you can define an environment variable, just a connection string for production and a connection string for development, and you can also do that with environment variable. So how it's done, it's by removing some code and reusing what ASP.NET has done, which is, I will just make it a little bit bigger, and the idea is, let me show you the very important thing. You see removing some code. This is commenting out because we are modifying some stuff and we don't want to touch that. It's breaking. This thing here, can I just div settings unified? Yes. So here, so we have a class called something shell settings manager. This is a service that stores the shell settings, the site.txt content, and also reads them. So now when we read them, what we do is, I think no, I have it just there. So when we read them, we build a configuration for a specific tenant folder, and to do that, we get the tenant name, and we create a new configuration builder, which is an ASP.NET class, and we say add environment variables. The goal is that the configuration builder will be filled with data from the environment variables. We add it again with a custom prefix. So in this case, the tenant name. So let's say I have default tenant and I have blog tenant. So it will look for connection string environment variable, but also default underscore connection string and default underscore production connection string in this order. So you can have a connection string value and also a specific connection string for a specific tenant in a specific environment. It's like shapes overriding, and it will read that in this order. Then it will read the values in the app settings.tenants.json, which is a set of settings for all the tenants, but on the file system and not in the environment variable, because the file system will take over the environment variable. and then app settings tenants with the environment name, like production. So you can have settings specific for production, which will override the one which are global to all tenants. And then we will look for the one for the specific tenant, which will be inside the folder of the tenant. So this one is in the root app data folder, or might be in the root folder altogether, and this one is in the tenant folder, like it is today. So today we have this folder plus site settings or settings.txt. That's what it's replacing, app settings.environment name.json, and without also the environment name here. Okay. So per tenant also you can define custom properties in the folder itself. And by default, I will expect this is what we will always have. And then we have, and then what we do is that we call configure for each tenant on that thing to build a configuration object that will have the configuration for each tenant. And this is that we use to create a shell settings object. And that solves everything. Just these lines of code and removing what we had already that was doing that by hand provides all the environment possibilities, and also reusing the same configuration across tenants, overriding in each tenant, per environment, all the things you want to do. What we do also is we have configuration providers. A configuration provider is an interface that you can implement to provide more sources for your configuration. So let's say you have your own configuration system somewhere in some, let's say, Azure Key Vault or something else. You can have your own implementation that will also provide some configuration sources for the builder. And what it does is just lets you provide it lets you have access to the configuration builder, and you can remove some sources or add new ones, inject some of them, change them. So you do whatever you want with that, and that solves all the issues. It's beautiful. And we tried it, it works perfectly. And together with Jean-Thierry, we'll do also some optimizations to just read the environment variables once for all tenants, so it will make them faster. Or we'll also split the list of tenants in one file and the settings in another file. Also to be able to abstract what settings we support, because today the shell settings has a connection string property, but that's very specific to the fact that we need a connection string. Maybe you want a modular app that doesn't require a connection string, so why would we have to deal with that? So we will abstract that, but it's super easy to do. And yeah, that's some improvement. That's why it's still not ready, marked as not ready, but that's the idea. And it already works today. That's it. Questions? Good. So topics, I forgot, questions? No and no. Okay, good. Beta 3, no progress. We fixed a bunch of issues, but not much. So again, reminder, if you want to help. Oh, we did triage. So what we did in triage, if you go to labels beta 3, sorry, milestones beta 3, you only see what we need to ship beta 3. Okay, 15 issues. So please adopt an issue and help us fix it. Some are very simple, we just need people to work on that. And then all the other ones are for RC with priorities. So if I look at milestones RC, we assigned some priority to the ones that were initially marked as beta 3 but are not blocking beta 3. So they are now really on RC but with priority. And ideally we should put a priority on each of them for RC. Okay? That's it. Questions? Then all good. Next triage on Thursday and next meeting next Tuesday. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.